meeting?
Yep, I just started.
Okay, Maria, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Maria Dandrea. I'm the Director of Public Works. And I've been with the city about 3.5 years now. And really, I think we've been working on this initiative for at least a couple of years. So I'm happy to provide an update. I know this was an issue that the former KEB committee wanted to work on as well. And really, that was the impetus, was that several different committees, actually through ETAC, through even the budget committee, wanted to look at this initiative and see if this made sense. So I do have a presentation that I'll walk through. I'll call that up, and feel free to interrupt me if you have questions as we go along the way. And excuse me. Then we'll summarize it here at the end as to kind of what our next steps are. So as I mentioned, we've been working on this really for over a couple of years now, and it really was impetus from feedback from ETAC, as I said, KEB, as well as CASE. If you're familiar with CASE, Citizens for the Advancement of a Sustainable Englewood, who were interested in exploring how could we go about organized garbage collection within the city. And initially we developed a RFP, and some of the representatives from these groups were involved in that process. But ultimately the council decided that they wanted to establish a citizens committee. So that was, we were just into the beginning of the pandemic at that point, back in June of 2020. And when the committee reviewed those initial proposals that we had received, they actually wanted to go back and rewrite it. So they thought that we could potentially reduce costs from those first proposals, as well as what they felt incorporate other elements to better serve residents and make for a better product in the end. So we were able to, and what you'll see tonight in my presentation is really the outcome of 19 meetings that we held with the Citizens Committee since from about early, it was probably July of 2020 through September of this year. We've had 19 meetings to really go through the RFP in detail. That was issued in late August of this year, and we just last week received new proposals. So we did have 11 members from the community. Excuse me. And you can see their names there. We have had a couple of members drop off, move out of the city, or in the case of Steve Ward, he was appointed as a member of city council, so he can no longer serve on the Citizens Committee. So I'll talk through each of the elements in detail a little bit here, and what, again, the proposal was that we laid out. So we've looked at, and what we're requesting from garbage haulers is two options, and this would be the base service. So either pay as you throw, which means that people could choose either a 32-gallon or a 96-gallon garbage container. We actually did include a 64-gallon as well at the direction of council. And basically, the smaller the container, the less you pay. So the idea being, if you're single or have a large family, you can scale your garbage can based on the amount of garbage that you're likely to develop. And so the other option would be is that everybody gets a 96-gallon, both garbage and recycling container, no matter your household size. So we did solicit pricing for both of those options. So one very important point that we found out both from our survey of the community as well as the Citizens Committee is that it was really important to allow households to figure out where they want to set their garbage. So either we have a lot of people who are adamant that they can only be served off of the alley. We've heard stories of people that some of the current garbage haulers are no longer serving if you have alley side pickup, just because of the wear and tear on their vehicles traveling up and down the alley, the low, sometimes overhanging wires that are in the alley and just the tight quarters. So they're trying to get more people to move out to the front of their house, but some people physically can't do that. Or whether their garages face the alley, that's where they store their garbage cans. So it's really important for people to have an option. So, and for many, alley side is still going to be the way that they want to go that. So the way that we structured the RFP was that the hauler was going to be required to collect in both the street and the alley. Then we also set the contract terms for a 5, a 7, or a 10-year term. And why we did that is because we can't just do it for 1 year. These companies will be investing a significant amount of dollars. They need to buy trucks to service the community, as well as invest. They are required to provide the garbage containers and the recycling containers. So all of those upfront capital costs, they need to spread those over a period of time. So we're looking at a minimum of a 5-year contract, and then also solicited prices for the 7 and 10-year terms. We'll get a little bit more into the costs associated or the increases that would go along with that. And that's here. So we talked a lot about this as a committee and staff, and even with city council. So where the committee landed was that they recommended that we would have the initial pricing would be fixed for 2 years at whatever those rates were. So year 1 and year 2 of that, whatever your contract we ended up with would be the same. And that allows for households to really know what are they going to pay, you know, not only this year, but next. And then future increases would be limited to either 3% or what we call the Consumer Price Index, which is a formulation that the government puts together. And in this case, it's for the Denver, Aurora, Lakewood area. And it basically tracks prices, how they're increasing. Sometimes that can be lower than 3%. Sometimes people refer to that interchangeably with the cost of living adjustment. But it is a number that is published. It's produced by a government source, and therefore it's considered a good barometer for how prices are going up. Excuse me. So they would be in the, again, those years 3 through whatever, if it was 5 or 7, they would be limited to either 3% per year or that consumer price index, let's say if it was 2%, but the maximum total increase would be 10% for a 10-year contract, would be 5% for a 5-year contract. So what that does under that scenario is 5% over 5 years is pretty limited. I know that I just received where I lived, my garbage bill went up $12 sometime this summer for the year. So, or excuse me, that was for the quarter. So roughly $4 more a month. So that over my regular price, I calculated out to be about a 17% increase just for that one time within a given year. And the letter that came with it, you know, said that they're seeing increasing fuel prices, they're seeing increasing labor costs, and so they're passing that on to their customers. So to limit these haulers to 5% or even 10% over 5 or 10 years is pretty significant. And what we anticipated seeing was that those initial prices for years 1 and 2 would be probably higher than what we expected. So we did include a second pricing option where, again, those initial 2 years would be fixed at that initial rate. So they wouldn't go up for 2 years. And then in future years, they could go up by either 3% or, again, that consumer price index number. But there wouldn't be a maximum total increase, but at the maximum, it would be 3% per year. So if the consumer price index was 4%, it would still be the lesser of 3%. So at least, again, we can guarantee what those prices are in the future years. So I'll stop there in case there's just any questions about that. Okay, I'll keep going on. Another big item that was really important to KEB was this large bulky item disposal. So one of the reasons my department, Public Works, got involved was because we were going out and collecting items that had been dropped in the right of way, such as mattresses, a lot of TVs, things were deposited back in alleys. And so we started to pick those up to try and maintain a higher aesthetic within the community, but it really became overwhelming. So it was really becoming a huge part of our day and a lot of the effort that we were putting into that. So to combat that, and a lot of what we heard from people was that they just had no other way of getting rid of a mattress. It was difficult. They didn't have a pickup truck. They couldn't work with their own hauler, their current hauler, to get rid of it. And so it would just end up, you know, deposited illegally somewhere. And then it became a city cost anyways. So what we proposed is that the waste haulers would have to, each household would receive 2 vouchers per year to dispose of 10 bags of trash, as well as 10 bags or bundles of yard waste, and up to 3 items from a particular list. So most of these items on the list, I'll show you here next, are things like sofas, mattresses, a toilet, a coffee table, things like that. And so we've laid out this list as up to 3 of those items for each of those vouchers you could collect at one time. So that would give you 2 opportunities within the year based on your timing. So you would call up the company, say, hey, you know, I'm going to use my voucher, and you could put all of that stuff out at the curb for them to come by and pick it up. And that would be included in your base service. All right. And the intent would be is that those vouchers could be carried over from year to year, so they never would expire. But again, it would be on the homeowner to call and the company and arrange that date of pickup. Recycling would be mandatory for all households. So meaning that you still would be required to have a container, but if you somehow chose not to do that or didn't want to have the container, you would not receive a credit for the recycling service. So that is part of the base price. And that we would, by one way of encouraging recycling is that we would want to make it mandatory for all households. Another item that received a lot of discussion was opting out of the service. So we also heard from some folks who said, hey, I love my garbage provider. I love the guys who pick up my garbage. I'm getting a really great rate. I don't want to use your program. And the problem with that is that while we respect that position, the problem is the way we get a reduced rate is by having more people participate. So when they can, if you imagine them going down a street or an alley and they have to pick up everybody's garbage can instead of just one here and one there, it becomes much more efficient and more cost effective. If all of a sudden 10 or 20% of people are opting out, then again, we lose that efficiency and lose the cost effectiveness. So where we landed was that the service is going to be mandatory for all households during that first year of the program, meaning give us a chance. Let's see if this works. And then in future years, households could opt out, but they have to also provide the city with proof that they have some sort of garbage service. So you can't just throw it in your neighbor's trash, can't bring it to the corner gas station. You actually have to have some sort of trash, which is per municipal code, that you're getting something and are able to dispose of your trash on a regular basis. So we felt that was a nice medium. Composting. So this was some people really wanted this. We are requesting that be an optional service that the haulers might consider offering. And would be an additional cost to homeowners if you wish to consider composting. So not a mandatory, but something where you could have that as an additional service. So haulers are not required to propose on that, but they can. We are also going to probably issue a compost only RFP, meaning that we would solicit only composting companies who might come in and want to provide that service separate from the garbage haulers. Similarly, green and yard waste. So right now, if you put out a bag of leaves or a bundle of branches, those get thrown into the landfill. And what we're saying, what this option would be is, again, an additional service that you would pay for on top of that base service, is that from May 1st through November 30th, the company would come by, pick up any types of green or yard waste, and then haul them to a composting facility that handles that type of material. So they wouldn't go into the landfill, but go to an organics facility that would process them, typically into mulch or some sort of compost for another use. We are also asking haulers to give us pricing for maybe in lieu of that previous thing where they pick up at your house, but where you can bring leaves to a certain event, kind of like the program that we had right now that was very successful. I heard this last weekend. But you would have to, again, you probably most likely in the spring and the fall, bring your green waste to that site, and then we would dispose of that and bring it to the composting facility. And if we did that, that would be included in your base service if we went that versus the additional cost for picking up at your home between May 1st and November 30th. We're also concerned about the environment, and what we're doing is one of the aspects of how we're going to rate the proposals is how are the vendors, how green essentially or low emissions are their trucks. So there's a variety of different vehicles that they can purchase, and we want to know, you know, are they in good working order? Are they using compressed natural gas versus gasoline versus maybe electric, something like that. And so that's one of the elements that we'll rate their proposals on. Another big discussion point, what if you have extra garbage? Sometimes we have people staying with us. Sometimes we have a party, you know, and not everything necessarily can fit in the can each week. And so what we're doing is we would allow for up to 4 getting pricing, and this would be on top of that base pricing of where households could set up to 4 bags of garbage or bundles of yard waste every week. That would be an additional cost. Or we would give 10 tags per household, like a sticker that you could put on those extra bags over the year to take care of those once in a while needs that you might have. We are also asking for pricing for Englewood residents. If you needed for some reason a 10 or a 20-year yard dumpster to be delivered to your house, how much would that cost? And make that price available for all Englewood residents. So again, you don't have to call different companies. You know that you can get it from this particular waste provider at this set price. Customer service was also a point that we talked a lot about. So we've heard horror stories from some residents about how they're kept online for not only minutes, but tens of minutes, trying to get an issue resolved, or they have a missed pickup and it just isn't resolved in a timely manner. So we put in not only how they're supposed to respond to customer requests, but also that there's penalties associated with that if they don't meet those requirements in a certain set of time. So for example, if there's a missed pickup, they have, let's say your pickup day is Wednesday, and for whatever reason they miss your can. They would have until the end of the day, the next day, to resolve that, come back basically and pick up and empty your trash can, or they would receive a penalty. So we wanted to put some teeth behind this, not just require that they have these various customer service and have timely resolution, but also put some costs associated with that could go back into the overall program. Yeah, and here it talks a little bit more. So when there is a missed pickup or a failure to resolve an issue in the time frame specified, then we would actually credit your household for that cost for that 1 month. And then any amounts above and beyond that would go into our low income household payment assistance or education and further outreach about recycling and waste reduction. On top of the charges that we would charge from the waste haulers, there would also be an administrative fee. So we would be required to hire a couple of additional staff, probably code enforcement as well as a program administrator to oversee this. We would, instead of you paying directly to your waste hauler in a monthly or a quarterly bill, you would see that now on your monthly utility bill. So besides water and sanitary sewer, you would also see a fee then for garbage services. So the two elements that would go into that is the cost from the waste hauler plus this administrative fee, which we're estimating right now to be about $2 per household per month on top of that. And again, you would then pay just one bill for all your utilities, including garbage. Multifamily dwellings would not be required to participate in the program. This is intended just for residential households up to 3, like a triplex. But we will encourage multifamily dwellings to participate if we can get them, better prices. And again, working with that same hauler to have fewer vehicles on the streets. Our overall schedule, I know this is a little bit small, but our intent, we've just received, as I mentioned, the new proposals back in last week. And so we will be reviewing those with the Citizens Committee in the next month or so, doing some public outreach, and then bringing this back to City Council to determine if we want to move forward, probably in late February or early March. If we did go forward, we would use the summer of 2022 to do more education, start to inform people, how do we get you your new cans? How do we actually switch over the service and make that transition? And so probably by August, September of next year, we'd be implementing that new program where you'd use the new cans, you'd then see it on your bill, all of that stuff. So we need probably about 5 to 6 months to get all of that in place. So with that, happy to answer any questions and talk further if there's anything you want to dig more into details on. Thank you.
I'm kind of curious, and if this has been covered, I apologize. Are there any surrounding areas that have single trash haulers?
Quite a few. So Arvada just switched late last year. So they went, they had been for years just where you'd hire your own company. And then it was quite controversial. Westminster also was pursuing that, but ultimately decided not to go with single hauler. But Golden is that way. Lafayette, Louisville, all have single trash haulers. Littleton does not. You can still choose your own there as well. Denver provides their own service internally through city staff. It's a few other communities. Commerce City has an organized collection.
Sheridan does.
Sheridan has organized collection as well. Yes, thank you. So they switched just a few years ago too. And I think it's been fairly successful over there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Maria. Sorry I'm late. Forgive me, y'all, I'm in the car. Oh, I had a question. It's evading me.
No problem. Yeah, take your
Let me
time.
get back to you. Okay.
I'm a little concerned about the alley use. I would much rather see them forced to use the alleys if alleys are available, because it just seems like we have so much use on the streets, and some of our busier streets, these trash trucks are a real hazard. And I think we have pretty good alleys overall, but I'm wondering what the input from the haulers was on that.
Yeah, so again, that's a great question. So they would prefer not to pick up in alleys. And the reason for that is not just the physical limitations, but because a lot of them, again, it goes back to efficiency and then costs. A lot of them use those side loaders. You may have seen them where they've got an arm that kind of sticks out, picks up the can, and then drops it in sideways into the larger truck. And so there's just not enough room to do that in an alley. Instead, they have to drag the can around to the back, which then there's a mechanism that lifts the cans up and dumps them into the truck, what they call a rear load. And so it takes more time because now they have two people instead of just one in the truck who can, a person who can automatically use that arm. But now they have a second person who's moving those cans around, allowing them to tip, which takes more time, and then moving them back into place near the garage so that the alley remains clear. So it does come down to a lot to efficiency and just how they manage their operations.
Okay.
Maria, sorry. What was you might have explained this before I got on. What is, if we do move to single hauler, what's the hauler select, the vendor selection process? Is there an RFP that goes out? I'm sorry if I missed that, if you've already addressed it.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, so we had put out one initially that we received in, I believe it was May of 2020. And since that time, the city council asked that we form a citizens committee, and they actually looked at those initial proposals and said, hey, I think we can do better. They wanted to configure some of the requirements. And so we've been working on that process for a good over a year now. And the RFP was reissued with a new structure and new requirements in August of this year. And we just got those proposals back last week. So now the Citizens Committee is again tasked with evaluating those. We will score those. There's evaluation criteria that have been established. And then we'll be publicly doing some outreach about the program, and then ultimately bringing a recommendation to City Council, most likely in February or March of 2022.
How many proposals were submitted?
We received 2 last week.
2. You said February would be the we would submit to council for approval?
Yeah, that's our timeline right now.
What have you got a feeling for the citizens' reaction to this, or what kind of input has the committee received?
We did do, even before the committee was formed, or before even that first RFP went out, we had done a survey, an online survey of residents. That was not statistically, a sample. We will likely do another survey. The intent really was, we were talking in kind of, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And that survey was really focused on what's most important to you. And a lot of it for people was alley pickup. That was a huge feedback point that came back to us, as well as being able to have reliable service. So not having missed pickups, having good customer service, and then having some control over the pricing. So I don't think the intent was that, I don't want the prices ever to go up, but it felt like, or what a lot of the feedback we got was, I get this low price from a certain company, and then within a year they're raising it significantly. And so then they have to kind of almost like your cable bill, you have to shop around a lot or threaten to leave, go to another hauler. And then other items like hazardous waste, composting was also kind of showed up a lot too, people wanting to do more recycling and see more recycling within the community. So our intent would be, is now that we have actual prices, is to factor that into the new survey and say, okay, if the price is X, Do you feel that you would want to go this route, knowing that there's these other benefits with the large item pickups, with the regular good customer service, consistent payments through your utility bill, that sort of thing? And we'll see.
Well, that's one of the things I would think that would be the advantages. I know we have a new council. Do you have any feeling or feedback of how council feels about that now, about single hauler?
Yeah, not at this time. Again, I think if I can generalize, I think the city council, we talked with them before we issued the RFP. And just to make sure, you know, we were in alignment with their feelings, not just what the Citizens Committee had recommended, but that was still in alignment with what council wanted to see. So I think there was, hey, let's, you know, what's it going to hurt? Let's see what we get and continue this process, you know, without necessarily making a judgment call at this point.
Okay.
Maria, how many members are on the citizen committee?
There were 11. We started with 11. We're now down to 7.
And how did y'all go about, or how did the committee go about creating the criteria to grade the RFPs? Can you speak to that at all?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, it's a 100-point scale, and we debated that. So it was. Let me see if I can call that up while we're talking. Find that. I'll share that here. So we did talk about that quite a bit. Go down to that scoring criteria. Find that relatively easily. There we go. Can you guys see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay. So this was debated by the Citizens Committee. So we ended up being price and cost at 50 points. And you can see there some of these other elements, making sure that they adhere to what the RFP is asking them to submit and bid on. Their customer service program, how they're anticipating their levels of service in terms of response, pickups, that sort of thing. Any kind of alternative approaches that they might have, something unique or different that we might not have thought of, would be factored in here into these 30 points. Then the actual personnel who are going to serve this, in terms of who's managing this, who's our point of contact, not just necessarily the drivers, but who's managing this contract on behalf of the waste hauler, and who essentially is going to make sure that these elements are getting carried out on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, as you can see there, the quality of equipment and vehicles, and giving extra points if they're using alternative fuel vehicles.
Thank you for sharing that. Would you be able to send this to Bob or Mike so he could share it with us?
Absolutely, yeah, happy to.
And Logan, we've been recording this, so you should be able to access the whole thing also.
Thanks, Bob.
Any other questions?
I have a
Well, it
question.
sounds like, go ahead.
I have a question, just because I'm curious. I know you mentioned composting. Have you guys gotten any proposals from haulers that offer composting so far?
Neither one of the proposals that we received included composting.
Okay.
So if we move forward, it will most likely be as a separate compost RFP. So we have had some interest from a couple of companies who do just that. And so we would do that as a separate solicitation and offer that to residents through that process.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, it sounds like
I wish I
we've
could. Sorry.
got some good input here, and you're a lot further along than I had realized, probably since you've even got more input in the last few weeks, it sounds like. So that's great. Logan, was that you? Did you have another comment?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just curious if there are there really, how many major vendors are in the area? Do you know that, Maria? We only got 2 RFPs. I'm wondering if there's a way we could try and solicit more.
Yeah, we were really hoping for at least 3. So we have, if you are a waste hauler in Englewood right now, you have to license with the city. So we have 4 major companies and then 2 companies that do more like roll-offs or those large dumpster kind of things. They don't regularly pick up weekly trash. So really there's 4 companies, Waste Connections, Waste Management, Republic Services, and I believe it's Lies or Lees is currently registered within the city. So we were hoping to get at least a couple more because they all 4 of those do have a presence here. We did have a mandatory pre-bid meeting where 4 companies showed up, and ultimately we only received 2 proposals. So we did also leave the RFP open for, I think it was over 2 months. So it went out at the end of August and proposals weren't due for until early November. So we tried everything to try and get a little bit more participation, and unfortunately just received those 2.
Thanks for all your work on this, Maria.
Thank you. And I'm happy to come back and as we flesh this out a little bit more and get kind of put more structure around what we did receive in the proposals, is come back to the committee, and happy to share an update or those survey results in a little bit more detail, maybe January or February timeframe.
How do you see, since we're now the sustainability committee or commission, how do you see us fitting into this? Would we take the place of the citizens committee, do you think?
I think you could serve as an additional voice. So we could certainly, again, bring these back, and as a committee, you could say, yeah, we recommend, moving forward. We do that often. I'm the staff liaison for ETAC. So on certain issues, we'll discuss and debate that as a committee, and then they can, make a recommendation or move to recommend to city council based on the committee's evaluation of a particular effort like this and what their standing is. So we could certainly do something like that, and that's a way that the committee could weigh in a little bit more on this issue.
And another thing just occurred to me, what does the city do now with the sweepings that they collect, especially in the fall with so many leaves and stuff? Is that still taken to the yard there at the service center?
It is, and because so even the spring sweepings or fall sweepings, there are a lot of leaves in there, but unfortunately there's also a large amount of grit and sand, and so the state has determined that those are actually covered with heavy metals, and so we have to pay to dispose of those. So we can't just bring those to not even a landfill. So they actually are disposed of as hazardous waste to some degree.
Wow. Any other questions or statements? Well, we appreciate your time and all of the information. And if you could maybe even give a copy of your presentation to Tim so that we could get that out. I think there's a lot of interest out there in where this is all going, so I would appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, feel free to, it will definitely be education through word of mouth, not just what the city does. So
Yeah,
feel free to, if you're talking to neighbors, you know, have them come to the city's website. They can contact me directly and we can talk in more detail about any questions or things they might want to help to weigh in on and help drive our decision.
yes. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, look, Logan, since you're here, maybe we could actually have a formal meeting. Are you still driving?
No, I'm in my garage parked in the Jeep.
Okay. Let's call a meeting to order and we'll just have a short business meeting here. I believe we have 4 members now, so we have a quorum. Tim, does that work for you?
It does.
Great. Let's have a roll call. Bob Stephenson, Chair. I'm here.
Rachel Pelia, member.
Logan Dunning, member.
Marissa Lease, member.
Joe Anderson, council liaison, present.
Okay, well, we have 4 members, so we have a quorum. I looked over the minutes. I do not see any problems with them. Does anybody have any questions or corrections? I will entertain a motion to accept as submitted then.
Move to accept.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The motion is carried unanimously. We have had the presentation from Maria. That is recorded. We will continue, or we will call that as part of the meeting now, I guess. Tim, you might want to check with somebody to make sure that's acceptable.
It definitely will.
A couple of things on our agenda. We had the leaf recycling event last Saturday. I talked to a couple of people. Thank gosh that Will got a lot of the staff there for at least a few hours. But what was your reaction? The car count that I heard was 480 or something, almost 500 cars. And the wait times were as long as 45 minutes. Does that jive with what you who were there experienced?
Yes, they said it. They have never seen it that busy before. And it was nonstop all day. They had to tell people at one point they had to cut off the line in order to be done on time or near time.
Right. Right. We have had a few times where we had a line like that, but from what I heard, it was completely, it never let up. It started that way and was that way the whole day. So, and Tim and I met and we discussed that we need to get more of a volunteer base. Perhaps if the single hauler goes through, we will have some other options. But I think a couple of things. I think it shows that people really want to do the right thing. They're not sure sometimes how to do it, but if given the opportunity, they will take advantage of it. Plus, I think we've had such a mild fall that there's a ton of leaves that are being collected. I didn't sit here. Rachel, is that you?
Yeah, sorry. Some of the feedback that, we just like talked about with some of the residents as they were dropping stuff off is some of the garbage services in previous years would take some of this, and I heard from a few different folks that this year they're either not taking it for free, not taking it, or they're charging for it now. So I think that also might have been a factor.
Okay. Because I remember last year we did have some times where it did line up, but there were breaks in there. But from what I heard, it was just nonstop from 8 o'clock, and I was wondering if they had to cut it off at the end, and somebody said that they did. So it's probably going to be as bad this next weekend, and that's on Littleton's deal now. So anyway, we are going to work on getting more volunteers and see what we can do to alleviate some of this. Logan?
Thanks. I was only there till about 11:15, but yeah, you and Rachel are exactly right. It was backed up all the way to the feeder the entire time I was there. Most residents were not unhappy. I think I only had one or two people who were a little curmudgeon-y once they got to the front of the line, but I'm not sure more volunteers would be the answer. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems more like they just got bottlenecked on that 2-lane road all the way down to the site. And we were moving and shaking back there. We were unloading leaves as fast as we could and getting people out, but it really bottlenecked on that 2-lane road. And when they had to bring the backloaders through is when it really seemed to stop up. But I'm not sure if it's a process we can, as a commission, take a look at and maybe streamline, or if perhaps the answer is more volunteers. I'm not sure. Just wanted to voice that.
Well, we might have to work longer hours. Tim?
Sorry,
Tim,
go ahead, Tim.
I see you have a comment.
Sorry. Yeah, just had two quick comments. The first one is Will did ask me just to bring it up tonight that while it is Littleton's event, I believe next week or this coming Saturday, I should say, he did ask me to bring it up tonight to see if anyone is interested and has time. I guess we're still looking for volunteers. So if you're interested, please just let Will know. Then, yeah, the second thing is Will had told me for the event, the A1 Organics had requested 6 volunteers. And I think I was there from about 10:30 to get caught in line, so later than I thought. 10:30 till about 12:15. And yeah, it seemed like we were kind of at maybe 4 or 5 or 6 throughout the day. I know it just seemed, I don't know if that would have solved the issue if we had more, but certainly, we were working the whole time for sure. And the last thing, just to kind of Bob's point, when I met with Bob yesterday, we were joined very briefly by our neighborhood coordinator, Madeline Hinkfist. And it is something that's actually on the city manager's office goals for next year, to look at, working with communications and working with Parks, Rec, Library, and Golf to try to develop more of a kind of a formal list or a cohort, so to speak, of volunteers. And maybe when we collect that data to basically ask people, what types of events are you interested in volunteering in? And maybe having something related to, sustainability or environmental events is one of the choices. So that's something we've kind of, the city manager, Sean Lewis, and others have acknowledged is something to work on for sure in the next fiscal year, starting in January, which would certainly benefit events like this.
So one of the things that I would say, and this is something I know Mike also felt, and I stayed the entire time, so I was there for about 5.5 hours on Saturday, is breaking it up into shifts, because doing that kind of work for 5 hours is just too much. Especially given the ergonomics of it, it's not exactly safe. I don't know. That's just be my feedback. Is next year I think it's more digestible to have like a 2.5 hour shift doing that kind of work than a 5-hour shift.
Well, and maybe we do need to extend the hours, and if we can, we probably need to talk with A1 and see what their feedback is too. So I think that's going to be something that we can move on, look into for next year, and like I say, perhaps if we have this single hauler program in place, some of this may be alleviated, but yeah, something really definitely changed, because 5 years ago it was more of a low-key thing. I mean, you worked, but there was time, and people were not lined up, maybe a couple of rushes in that 5-hour period, but this was just huge. So anyway, it's something to think about and to work on. So let's continue to consider that and move forward. One other thing, while we were meeting yesterday, we did discuss the Christmas lighting program. Madeline is going to oversee that. I wanted to get some feedback from the members if you want to continue to judge that. We set up, we have another presentation on the 7th of December, I think it is. So we thought that we could do the judging on the 14th and have the results back to council after the first of the year. How does everybody feel? Would you like to drive around and evaluate the lighting things? There is a advertisement in the New Citizen that just went out, so we're looking for some feedback or some applications, and they are also going to do it by neighborhoods this year, since we're trying to coordinate with the city neighborhood effort there. Comments?
Do we know, is it going to be, are they going to do it again so everybody gets together and does it, or is it everyone doing it independently this year again?
Well, that's can be either way. We thought that we would probably get together and meet at a central point, maybe Civic Center or the Rec Center, and go from there. If people would like to drive themselves, maybe we could carpool, or we could use a city van. We've done that in the past. I don't know how people are feeling with COVID, so that's wide open, but I would think that we would want to do it on the 14th, and if people would like to, we could probably go out for a short dinner, say meet at 5:30 and drive around and maybe get together at a restaurant about 6:45 and just compare notes and compile and go from there, if that appeals.
I think so. I like the camaraderie and the social aspect of it, and kind of putting names to faces now. I'm reaching 2 years I've been on this board almost, and we had one meeting in person and then COVID happened. So I think it'd be kind of nice to get back in that groove.
Seconded. I mean, that sounds great. Vaccinated and boosted. I'll ride with you, Bob.
Yep. I think I'm going to get a button that says Vax to the max.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
I'm in. I love the idea. If we want to do that in person, I'd certainly carve out time and be there with you guys.
okay. We will work on doing that. We will know more on our meeting in December, but I will have Nina or Tim send out some information as we move along. Rachel, do you still have your hand up, or is that from the last time?
That's from before. Oh, yeah.
Okay. One other thing, I think Rachel, your term is up. Are you willing to continue?
So here's my question, and nothing is firmed up. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud, and I don't know, this might be a question for Joe. Joe, if I was interested in joining another board, could I be on 2 boards?
We do allow people to be on 2 boards, though we typically, when we appoint, we typically make sure that everyone who applied and is qualified gets appointed to at least 1. And so there have been times where we have too few candidates and we're really hoping people will be appointed to multiple boards. However, the last time we had way more applicants than we had slots. So I have no idea what it's going to look like if you go to reapply. But you would certainly be prioritized for remaining on you're certainly welcome to apply for additional boards, and you would certainly be prioritized for remaining on the Sustainability Commission. And if we had extra slots, we would certainly consider you for additional boards as well.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So if the application process closes at the end of the month, November 30th, if you want to reapply, let me know, Rachel, because I also have to write a letter of recommendation, and I would hate to lose you. So anyway, whatever, but hopefully we get some applications since we're now sustainability, and I'm gonna start soliciting, seeing if I can find some other applicants and some other people that are interested. So
Okay.
great. I think that is everything. Tim, do you have anything else you would like?
I don't think so, Bob. I think you pretty much covered everything. I guess I would just make a reminder that we do have for next month in December, Steve Simon, who is one of the deputy directors of the Utilities Department, will be coming to present on water conservation efforts and public engagement related to it. And then we have not yet posted for the sustainability coordinator position, but we do plan to probably sometime in mid-December. And so I'll keep the commission posted about that.
Great. Joe, do you have anything from council or anything on else?
No, I just I don't know if you guys are aware of the outcome of the elections. We do have 2 new council members who are starting next week. Chelsea Noonekamp for District 2 and Jim Woodward for a 2-year at-large seat. So they'll be starting next Monday. So that'll be good. We got a good solid council. I'm looking forward to these next couple of years. And then we'll get the ball rolling on a lot of initiatives starting at the beginning of the year with the new council.
Great. Great. Anybody have anything else? I noticed we have a guest and I don't know who it is. Would you identify yourself? Or do you wish to remain anonymous? I guess they want to remain anonymous.
Hi. It's Dana Liebert.
Oh, hi, Donna.
Hi, Dana.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Good to have you.
Thanks. Good to hear what you guys are up to.
Welcome.
Thanks.
If nobody has anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I appreciate everybody getting here, especially Logan taking the time after you've already been in a meeting. I appreciate it.
Of course. You guys are more enjoyable. Motion to adjourn.
I try to make these as enjoyable as possible.
I second Logan.
All in favor, leave. Thanks.
Good to see
Good
you all.
meeting. I appreciate Maria. I appreciate your time, Tim. And we'll go from there. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye-bye.